What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the advanced Overwatch concepts that you absolutely need to master. You see, unfortunately, Overwatch doesn't teach you some of the most fundamental concepts that if you don't learn them, you're never going to be able to reach those pinnacles of rank like Diamond, Masters, Grandmasters, and beyond. So with every single one of these advanced concepts, I'm going to explain what it is, and then I'm going to tell you things that people do right and wrong about said topics so that you don't make the same mistakes in your games. Now, the first one that I get a lot of questions about is peeling. People don't really understand what peeling is, how to do it correctly, how are they messing up with peeling. Now, essentially what peeling is just coming back and helping a teammate. For example, you are a DPS McCree and your Ana is getting doped by a Doomfist. You are peeling by going away from the front line, going back to your Ana, stunning the Doomfist, and either killing him or getting him the hell away from your Ana. That would be a form of peel. Now, peel can be done from a lot of different roles. You can peel as a support, which is just healing a target on your team that is about to die in a 1v1 or being doped by the enemy. You could also be peeling as a tank, coming back to your team and helping them out as like a Roadhog or a Diva can DM and help. That's how she could peel. This is essentially just looking out for your team and making sure that they don't die or giving them the resources they need in order to win a 1v1 or survive an engagement by the enemy. Now, the first big problem with peeling is not putting yourself in a position where you can peel at all in the first place. A perfect example of this would be going back to that Ana McCree scenario where the Doomfist is constantly diving your Ana. If you're a McCree that knows that this could happen, because the enemy has a Doomfist and it has happened, you should be positioning in a way where at a moment's notice you can transition from the front line to your Ana to help her out. But if you're on an off angle or you're freaking flanking as McCree, sure, you might pop off and get a kill, but your Ana's a sitting duck to that Doomfist. It's really important for you to position in a way where you can peel at a moment's notice and constantly being ready to peel instantly, because the opportunity time or the time that you have to peel before your teammates just die is very, very slim sometimes. Now, once you get to the higher level of peeling, you'll start to learn how to maximize your amount of help without wasting your own time. A perfect example of this is, let's say you're a Baptiste, right? And you're healing the front line, you're healing your Reinhardt. But then out of nowhere, you see that there's a Tracer fighting your McCree in the back line, and your McCree needs help. He needs resources. Instead of just full healing him, turning around, helping him out fully, and just leaving your Rein out to dry, you can turn around, peel by throwing your Immortality Field on the McCree. You say, hey, throwing Immortality Field on you, or whatever. Your McCree gets the resources he needs to have a huge advantage in that 1v1, but then you go right back to healing your front line. That is a way that you split your focus, still helping both parties without allowing either to fail and without neglecting either one of the parties. You could do this from the DPS role as well, for like just being able to put a little bit of damage into a target that is dueling one of your allies, gives them a much higher chance of winning the duel, and you're really helping them out even if you're not going there and helping them close on the deal. You're just providing extra value and resources into them by dealing damage to whoever they're fighting, and this could be used in a lot of different ways, like just throwing out a bubble on Zarya or whatever the case may be, and really learning how to master being able to help peel but actually take away as little as possible from your regular play style. That is the best thing that you could possibly be doing. Now, moving on to the next advanced topic that we got to talk about is kiting. Now, kiting is kind of similar to like peeling a little bit, but not quite the same. So basically what kiting is backing up and delaying a fight. So a perfect example of this is, let's say the enemy is freaking like blading, right? But they have a long distance to go. Kiting would be like if your Lucio speeds your whole team out. You're not taking the fight yet. You're actually purposely backing away from the fight. Yeah, you give up space, but you're still alive. You don't have to get wiped and go back to spawn. Kiting's an amazing thing to do when maybe you're down numbers and you're waiting for people to respawn. An amazing example of this is like on King's Row. Let's say you're playing King's Row, you're on defense, it's Rein v Rein, Rein Zarya, and both teams are going at it, but you lose like a support. Now, you could fight that 5v6 and try to turn it, but that's probably going to be pretty bad for you in order to actually win. You're basically fighting at a disadvantage. So what kiting would be backing up as 5, not letting the enemy cap, but letting them have a couple of ticks, waiting until your ally is almost back, and then re-engaging the fight, and then they're going to be able to rejoin short after you make contact with the enemy. This basically kites or temporarily pauses the team fight until you get to fight at a full fighting force 6v6. Because if you take that fight early, you're probably going to lose and just get wiped and lose the point. But if you wait for the respawn and the regroup, you're going to be able to fight as a full 6v6, and you have a much better chance of actually winning. Now, typically, you can call, hey, kite back, kite back. This is a really powerful call that you can use in your games, but typically the one who's going to dictate this the most is actually the main tank. So as the main tank, it's your responsibility to dictate when to kite and when not to kite. If Orion is backing up with a shield out, people are usually going to follow suit, but if you're a backline support backing away, sometimes your teammates aren't going to follow you, and they're just going to be still out there in the front line. Now, moving on to the third advanced Overwatch concepts that you really need to understand, and it's sandbagging. Now, this is a pretty difficult concept to just do in solo queue, but if you duo or trio, I think this is definitely feasible. Essentially, sandbagging is purposely withholding different abilities or ultimates in order to allow the enemy to overextend into you or to be able to use them later on for some specific value. A great example of this would be like a dry push, where you and your team go in up against an enemy that has a ton of ultimates. Now, you're still trying to win the fight, you're still going to do damage, all that stuff, but you essentially want to force the enemy into using their ultimates while you are not planning to use yours. Maybe they have Grab Dragon, Nano Blade, whatever the case may be, and y'all might have Trance, y'all might have a Grab Dragon of your own, or some other crazy ultimate, but you don't use any of them. You allow the enemy to wipe you and waste all these ultimates, so the next time y'all go in, y'all have 3 ultimates and the enemies have none, and you can close it out and they don't have any ultimates to counter ult you. Sandbagging can also be done on a micro level with like individual abilities. For example, sandbagging something like Sleep Dart, waiting until later on to use it, because you got to understand that sometimes if you waste the sleep, that's like the go-ahead from the enemy. They're like, oh, Ana doesn't have sleep, let's go all in at her. But until you use that, they're going to be playing they're going to poke you down a little bit, but they're not going to all in you, and you can sandbag to not only prevent them from engaging on you, but have it towards later on to counter things. You could even counter things like Blade or counter of Doomfist freaking rolling out on top of you, different things like that. So that's a perfect example of sandbagging, and all in all, this is a very important concept for you to understand at the very least. Now moving on to the next big Overwatch advanced concept that you need to understand, and it's baiting. Now, there are 2 types of baiting people talk about in games. The first one is baiting your allies, which means your ally is going in or you're letting them lead the way and then you're not helping them out. That's kind of baiting, where you kind of pretend to go in with them or you're acting like you're going to go in with them, but you don't actually do anything until they're already feeding in, and then you maybe get a kill after the fact. That's not the type of baiting I'm talking about. The type of baiting I'm talking about is baiting the enemy, and this is like baiting the enemy in. Now, this could be a combination of sandbagging plus kind of showing a fake weakness towards the enemy. A perfect example of this would be playing semi-isolated, or you look like you're isolated, but you actually have someone hiding behind LOS. Like, imagine an Ana standing like right in like an opening. There's like a corner, but you just only see the Ana. But the second the enemy jump on her, right around the corner is a Roadhog purposely baiting and looking to turn the table. So imagine a monkey jumps at the Ana. Not only does he get slept, but he gets hooked by the Roadhog, naded, and then he's just freaking dead. And it's a great way to really punish the enemies for only looking at what they see, not thinking about what possibly could be, and just going in automatically. Like, they see an isolated target, they're just like, oh, I'm going to jump in. But the first time you do this, the first time you hide information from the enemy on purpose and punish them because of it, now they'll be cautious little bitches for the rest of the game. They're not going to just blind jump on you. They're going to make sure they know where the Roadhog is and know where the McCree is. And sometimes they're not even going to jump even if they see an opportunity, because they're scared that you're still intentionally baiting them, and that can make it so they're leaving value on the table when you actually have a weakness, but they don't know for sure if it's a fake or real one. And this is definitely a concept that I think you can utilize best in like duo queue, but it's really important for you to understand, and it's important for you to know to play around it just in case enemies are using it against you. Then we're going to the next Overwatch advanced concept that you absolutely need to understand, and it's snowballing. Now, typically, snowballing happens because enemies make a big mistake, and the thing is, enemies are making this mistake across every single rank. It's just people are not actually punishing it. essentially, it's going up and trying to fight a team or put pressure on a team when you are not at a full fighting force and the enemies have the capability to push up on top of you. So, for example, let's go back to that King's Row. Let's say, as the enemy team, you wipe them off, but you don't wipe them all at the same time. You kill like a Zarya and a Hanzo first, right? But they respawn in the good spawn up forward, and the rest of the team respawn really far back. Now, instead of them just backing up and regrouping with their team, they're poking. They see y'all, they see the team, they see all of y'all are on cart, and they're like, hey, if we stay really far away from the cart, we can just right-click and, use our primary fire and just start poking y'all down. But as a team, y'all leave the cart. Maybe you leave one person on the cart, like a Zen, and you speed boost on top of them, and they can't get away. Now, guess what happens when their team tries to regroup? By the time they get there, their Zarya and their Hanzo are dead because they were way too aggressively pushed up, and now, out of nowhere, they're in a 4v freaking, 6 again, or 4v5. But guess what you do again as a team? Y'all have numbers advantage again, and they're struggling so hard to come save their teammates. Now they're overextended, and then you wipe that team because you take a fight on purpose, and now they're wiped. And now, the enemy team just lost 2 fights in a row, and you get the second point for free because they didn't understand the fundamental concept of fully regrouping. But most of the time, enemies are making this mistake, but no one is punishing them for it. So, it's just a really important concept for you to know, call, try to dictate, especially if you're a character like a Lucio or like a main tank that can decide these types of things. But it's really important for you to also know so that you don't get snowballed in your games. Then moving to the last advanced concept for Overwatch, and it's punishing. And this is actually a pretty simple concept at first, but it has a lot of layers to it that you need to know. So, essentially, everything that Overwatch is about is all about what things you can get away with and what things you get punished for, and vice versa. What things you punish enemies for and what things you allow them to get away with. Sometimes enemies will be playing in a way that against a different opponent, they would just feed over and over again, but if you cannot punish them for the same set of actions, then they are all of a sudden carrying. Imagine a Genji that just gets to Psycho go in, go flank, dash through, dash, reset, get blazed really quickly and just pop off. Or the Genji that goes in, and he's honestly way too aggressive, and one of the many of you, shut him down. Now that one same Genji that was like 1v5ing is now feeding in 0-on-1. It's really important for you to identify when enemies are fundamentally out of position and when they are in a situation where you should be able to punish them, and then think to yourself how you can punish them, and if you didn't, why couldn't you? What are the ways that you could improve your own individual play to make sure that they don't get away with that? A lot of the time, if an enemy gets through, you should be thinking to yourself, I should have punished that person. What should have I done to punish that person? And I can't believe I allowed them to get away with that, because ultimately that's your job, depending on the role you're playing, to actually penalize enemies for stretching the boundaries too much, for not respecting you enough, for going above and beyond their role and their impact to try to pop off and carry. You should be thinking, how dare they do that? I am here, and there's no way that you're going to get away with that. And that is exactly the mentality that you should have when punishing. Like, you really think you're going to blade in front of me as Ana without reflecting? Yeah, I'm going to sleep the hell out of you. Or you really think that you're just going to roll out throughout the sky and I'm not going to headshot you twice as McCree? Yeah, it's not going to happen. That is the type of mentality that you should have, and that's definitely something that can carry you throughout multiple ranks if you really adopt this mentality and apply it to every single game you play.